Let's get to the numbers that you will not see on the 6 p.m. news, that you barely read anywhere else. But I'll tell you, and I'll tell you each and every night, it's one of the main reasons to join us at 9 p.m. Eastern each and every night. Live, not just on YouTube or online a little later. Now, in Australia in the past 24 hours, 150,000 people have gone for a COVID test. This is amazing. Well done to everyone. But this means, of course, everyone who felt crook, went near someone who was crook, went near to a place with a person who once felt crook, they all went. So Australia is actually on top of this right now with 150,000 tests, 27 new cases. That means just 0.01% of everyone who got a COVID test in the past 24 hours actually has the virus. Well done, Australia. Sadly, though, of a population of 25,787,000 people, 11 million more than are currently locked down tonight. Well, I appreciate the captive audience. I'd like you to have your freedom back. As for the actual number of active cases across the country after the past couple of weeks, this is where it stands right now, including people that have been in hotel quarantine, 317 cases across the country. 62 of them are in hospital. Just one person in the whole country is in ICU. Remember, at one point it was 2 this week in New South Wales. Well, now it is down to 1. And of course, no one has died of coronavirus in Australia in the year 2021. Yet, the power-mad premiers, well, they are thumping that panic button as if it was a pop-o-matic bubble and you were playing Trouble in lockdown.
We know how transmissible this variant of the virus is. Anybody who leaves the house, assume that you have the virus or that people you come into contact with have the virus and act accordingly.
We will be banning singing for the next 12 weeks.
But we are still in a dangerous period. The territory is still under threat.
Will be enough to crush and kill the virus in its tracks.
But despite these lunatics, people are getting the vaccinations. The single largest day of people who have had the vaccinations. Could it have anything to do with lockdowns? That was what supercharged it in Victoria and now in New South Wales. But 161,000 people have got the jab in the past 24 hours. 7.8 million people have at least one dose so far.
The over-governance and disproportionate measures we see today in order to respond to a virus is a case of martial law masquerading as medical law. Measures like standing 1.5 metres away from someone, for God's sake, mandatory mask wearing, limits on visitors to your home, only allowed to leave for certain reasons. This is North Korean stuff. The worst part in New South Wales and federally, the so-called Liberal Party are in government, a political party built on freedom which should be rejecting totally dictatorial rulings. Now, we've all seen and used these QR codes, the thing you do on your phone to sign in to a venue. This all says George Orwell 1984 stuff. What does Big Brother do with this data? It was implemented as a means to trace those who may have been in contact with someone infected with coronavirus. Again, a virus so bad you need to be tested to know whether you've got it. And it was Queensland's Chief Health Officer, Dr Jeanette Young, who let the cat out of the bag yesterday when she said, we've had very few deaths due to COVID-19. That's correct. So why are governments being so alarmist? When it comes to QR codes and signing in, we're entitled to ask, what is the government doing with this information? Now, I informed you the other week of the revelations coming out of WA. Over there, police have been accessing the state's coronavirus contact tracing app data to assist in criminal investigations. This is despite Premier McGowan assuring West Australians that the data from the sign-in app would only be used in relation to coronavirus. Well, in New South Wales, this Stalinist sign-in nonsense will go further. Citizens will now be forced to check in to the government whenever they go to work or go out to get a takeaway coffee or groceries, forced to check in to the government whenever they go to work or go out to get a takeaway coffee or groceries. This is martial law. Previously, QR codes have only been recommended, but not required in retail settings. Now they'll be mandatory from July 12. Even schools will need QR codes so teachers and visitors can sign in. This is absurd. Prime Minister, this is not Australia. Where are you? Silent as always. Which leads me to share with you the thought of one wag, the story doing the rounds. What's the difference between Harold Holt and the current Prime Minister? Answer, Harold Holt only went missing
Mother
once.
has told Sky News she could be forced to stay overnight in Sydney Airport with her young children or face another fortnight quarantine in Queensland. Anastasia says she's been denied an extension to stay in her current hotel. Flights home are growing increasingly limited, and booking accommodation elsewhere in the state would see her classed as being in a red zone. I spoke with Anastasia about her situation a little earlier.
So, Anna, we had booked some flights with Virgin Australia. We've had them cancelled. And basically, in the quarantine facility, you're given a window that you're able to leave. So all of the flights departing Sydney tomorrow, about 9 of them have been cancelled. There's one flight that I'm able to make outside of my window of the quarantine. I've asked to go early. That's been denied. I've asked to stay an extra night just to give a bit of a fudge factor in case I can't make that flight. Everything has been denied, unfortunately. The Queensland government, I've been in touch with them overnight, and basically they have said to me, I must leave the quarantine facility, I must stay at the airport, and I cannot leave the airport grounds, either the arrivals or departures terminal at all, otherwise it'll be deemed as a red zone. So basically they've told me to stay overnight within the airport grounds, to be still a clean case to then be able to travel into the Queensland border.
Because you're then facing, or you would then be having to face another 14 days quarantine in Brisbane, is that right?
Correct.
And you're also isolating, or you've been quarantining with your 2 young children, so being told that you may have to stay overnight at Sydney Airport, that's just not feasible or realistic for you?
It's not ideal, and I don't understand how this is safe. It's not safe for me and my children to do that. I don't understand how that's a COVID-safe situation. I've asked if I can hire a car from the airport and travel as far as I can safely, because I'm the sole parent at the moment with the kids. And they have said I must arrive by air. So there's no solution other than... Yeah, sorry, Anna.
No, well, I was going to ask, is there a solution? What about the potential of being transferred to a hotel closer to the airport? Have you inquired about that?
I absolutely have. So I've asked for my stay here to be extended. I've asked if I can use another hotel. There just seems to be no options. I just keep on getting no. All I'll have to do is another 14 days mandatory quarantine.
Have you been told why you can't extend your stay where you are at the current quarantine hotel?
Yes, because they're over capacity. The doctor today was mentioning they're about 10% overbooked. They're trying to source emergency accommodation for people incoming. It's just blowing at the seams, I guess.
And you touched on it before with the looking at using a car for transport. You've really tried to exhaust your options, haven't you? You were trying to even say to the Queensland government that you would drive up to the border, and even that was knocked back?
Absolutely. I've even said I'll walk across the border. I don't care what I have to do. I just need to get home with my babies to Brisbane. Absolutely.